All right, so we're back. We're doing another comic interview, and this time we have JD Gonzales from Covenant Comics. JD, introduce yourself.
What's up, man? Hey, yeah. So I'm JD from Covenant Comics. I'm the writer and letterer over here, and I write Crossbones, and yeah, that's who I am.
Sweet man. I just read the first four issues of Crossbones. I really like it, and how did you get into comics? What are the beginnings?
Um, it's kind of funny. I think I feel like it's kind of like the same for everybody. It usually starts with like the cartoons. You watch Batman the animated series and X-Men and Batman Beyond and Justice League Unlimited, and then eventually it's like run out of cartoons. So now what? And so I think I was like somewhere in like fifth grade or something like that. I bought my first comic book, and from there it's like, dude, I'm obsessed with it. Like right now, my laptop is sitting on like a stack of comics I still haven't organized, and so yeah, that's where my love of comics came from. Is just diving into stories of that everyone grew up with, and it's pretty cool. I think it's something that we all, at least in the Western side of the culture, that we all grew up with these stories, with these characters, with Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and everything in between, Iron Man, and especially now with the MCU. We all grew up with these characters, these stories, and it's like one of the one things that we kind of share in common. It's growing up with these memories and these storylines. So it's cool. I don't know. It's cool to see now that these characters are finally like considered cool. Because when I was growing up, it was like if you liked
Totally.
Batman, Superman, comic books, you're a nerd, And
Yeah,
so it's cool to see that it's like it's cool now.
yeah. Oh yeah, I can relate to that totally. Like now, like Marvel always kind of seemed like it was. I don't know the I never imagined that like you'd be having conversations with like all these people about Marvel
Yeah,
movies. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
before the Marvel movies were so like niche, it was kind of like, oh yeah, people already watch those. Now,
yeah.
like last week, you had Spider-Man tickets selling out like
Dude, I
insane.
know.
You know what I mean? I never would have
Impossible to
imagined
get
that.
tickets. That was crazy.
Yeah. So, but what kind of comics were you reading growing up? Like, or what were the first comics you remember getting into?
Remember, it's kind of funny because I grew up in a very Christian home. And so the first comic that I bought was Ghost Rider. And and I remember specifically on the cover of one of the issues, and I'm always looking for this one comic, and I don't remember what number it is or from what volume it's from. But on the cover it had 666, very like small on it, very, very, very small. But my mom found it and she took all my Ghost Rider comics and threw them in the trash. um, so yeah, I'm always looking for that cover. I don't remember what number it is, but I'm always looking for it. So yeah, I grew up with Ghost Rider, Daredevil, obviously Batman. Everyone loves Batman, and all those of those characters. And so it's kind of like it seemed like when I was a kid, I was more Marvel leaning, but now these days I'm more DC leaning. But they're both kind of garbage right now, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I find myself kind of going more back in like the back catalog, binge
Yeah,
reading a lot of stuff. Like the
right.
last, 2021 for me has been trying to read as much X-Men as possible. So like
Right.
I'm more of a DC guy too. So like,
Yeah.
but I've always loved X-Men. I've always loved Iron Man, Spider-Man. I'm like, you know what? X-Men seems like the hardest to get into, so I'm gonna
Mm.
get into it. I want to be that guy, put people onto X-Men comics. So
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I could totally now I see the Ghost Rider influence in Crossbones.
Yeah. There's a lot of it in there. Yeah.
Have you ever read Jason Aaron's Wolverine? Have you ever read that?
Which run is that one?
It
I'm terrible with names.
it has like the Jai Lee covers early on. It's Wolverine goes to hell or Wolverine in hell.
No, I
And
yeah, I skipped out on those ones. Yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
that one.
you should check that out because when I was reading Crossbones, all I could think about was like that run, like the early bits of that run. So I was just kind of curious if you ever read that because I weirdly I don't know I kind of was like this reminds me of this because Wolverine goes to hell
Yeah.
Crossbones has a similar experience in that after.
You'll have to share that with me. I'm always down for those types of storylines. I don't know. They're a big influence on me. Um, but yeah, actually, it's funny because, and not a lot of people know this, but one of the main inspirations for Crossbones is Dante's Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like obsessed with that poem when I was in high school. Like I had like a not it wasn't a graphic, but it was like an illustrated version of the poem, and I would just read it over and over and over again. You know, of Dante, you know, and his journey from hell to purgatory and heaven and stuff like that. So that's like a huge inspiration for his storyline. Obviously, the dude's name is Dante. You know, cross name is Dante, and then if you really pay attention to the story, you'll pick up on like hints like that. You know, you have Virgil in the storyline now, and then obviously in issue 3 you see a character named Beatrice, and obviously Charon at the end of issue 1. So I like to make it very subtle, but it's actually a really big influence of me on that story.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So what kind of comics do you read right now? Do you read any single issues, or you kind of?
I am, and I probably should stop because man, I'm so behind. I am so
Yeah.
behind. I go every week. I got my local LCS, and I have my own uh, vault or what they call it, binder where they put my comics in.
Oh, the pull list. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
pull list, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, probably right now I'm probably a year behind. Still going every week collecting.
A year behind. Wow. That like
I'm
that's. I if that was me, I wouldn't be going every week. I'd be like, all right, I need to stop
yeah.
this.
I have that thought in the back of my head, but then like I don't know if it's like OCD or what it is. Just like this need, this desire to just go every week because I hate that idea. It's like, man, I'm falling behind. I'm falling behind. But yeah, right now I'm reading Batman. What number are they on? Somewhere in the thousands.
One. So Batman, it's the regular Batman. It's like 117. Detective Comics, it's 1045.
Yeah, I'm clicking both of those. So somewhere in the, like 30 issues behind. I'm reading Daredevil. Great storyline right now. I don't know if anyone was a big fan of it, but I was a huge fan of Elektra as Daredevil. I thought that was like the perfect person to take up the mantle after Matt. So honestly, I'm surprised they haven't done that. They've just done that, the last couple of years. What else am I reading? Black Hammer. I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
Big Jeff Lemire fan. I love Jeff Lemire. Also Scott Snyder, obviously. Anything that he writes, I pick up. Undiscovered Country. We have Demons. All his comicsology stuff that he's doing. Man, what else? I have like 30 comics in my pull list. But yeah, that's just like a gist of what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Just some stuff like that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot now more than not, like modern comics, it's like a lot of the stories aren't like it's very oversaturated. So like I've gotten to the point where like my pull list is, you know, there's no chore books. Like the only chore book I'd probably be like, oh, this can be a little rough sometimes is Batman, but I still get it because I like Batman as a character. He's one of my favorite characters. Um, but yeah, no, I've kind of tried to cut my pull list down a little bit, so I'm spending anywhere from like 10 to 20 bucks a week. But
Yeah.
like my brother gets like everything Superman. He's like a sucker. Like whenever it comes to like anything, he's relatively like into like so sometimes he has like a pull list where it's like you spend like $30-$40. That's way too much. And then most of the time, like there's a stack over here probably this big of stuff he hasn't read yet, so it's
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
probably relate to your brother.
yeah. But I give him a trade. I'm like, oh, read this, and he'll read it like in a week or so. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm going to transfer over just getting trades from now on because that's exactly how I am. Like, I just like either that or just digital. And that was like back in the day, I was very against digital.
right.
And it's just like I can get on Comixology and just like, yeah, there you go. And I just read a single issue without even having to bust out of not the poly, bag and the board and just having to, neatly put it back in and do that for each and every single individual issue. It's just kind of a pain, but again, like it goes back to having that desire to go every week and get these comics. And so that's the life I chose.
Yeah. Now, do you have DC Infinite or Marvel Unlimited? Any of those streaming? Like,
I did have DC Universe. Is that what it was called? DC Universe.
yeah, it
I did have
changed and now
that.
it's Infinite.
Yeah, now it's Infinite. I'm not sure if it just transferred over it and maybe they're just charging me still. But yeah, I did have DC or Universe, and then I think I canceled it after they obviously got rid of it.
Yeah.
Because what a bummer that was. That was such a big bummer. I was one of the big supporters of that. I was like, dude, this is like the perfect idea to have a streaming service for DC and everything DC and everything.
Yeah.
Wise, I thought it was a brilliant idea. And they just put that effort into it, I guess. I don't know.
So basically, like DC Infinite, it was unlimited now, or Universe, DC Universe. Now it's DC Infinite. It's gotten a lot better. And on the plus side, you can read those comics on your laptop, which I like,
cool.
but Marvel Unlimited is definitely the superior one because they have literally everything on there. Like you can go back and read like the original Spider-Man and go through the Steve Ditko stuff. But
yeah,
with DC Infinite, it's like there's certain things that they don't have on there because it almost seems like they want you to buy the trade. Like they're like, we're not gonna have the Killing Joke on here because we want you to buy the trade. Or like,
lame.
yeah, it's kind of like, but for the most part, they have just about everything on there. But yeah, I since I've had those two, I feel like I've saved a lot of money because I was buying so many trades at one point. Like I can't even fit any more trades on my shelf. But I think that's kind of the future too. I feel like we're gonna get more digital stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Especially
100%.
exclusive stuff. Like if they put like some of the heavy hitters like Batman, I mean that's kind of it right now. Like Flash is really good, but I don't read Superman. I don't read Justice League anymore. So it's like just kind of Batman, Flash. That's pretty much it for DC actually right now. But
yeah, and they do their whatever offshoot, DC or whatever. I remember a lot of people jumped on that. It was good. I liked it. But then
the first one was good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they did like everything else, So
the sequel wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all right.
But let's talk a little more about Covenant, man. Like, how did Covenant begin? Like, I know I on the website it said you and your buddy from high school. There was you guys would sit at the lunch table, kind of talk about make up characters.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, where did this begin? Like how did it? What was the jumping on point? Like, let's actually do this.
Yeah. So originally that's pretty much what it was. So that's kind of like our tagline. If we were to ever have a tagline or a slogan, it is a universe at a lunch table. And so that's basically what it was. It was me and my friend Jesse Chisholm, whom I'm doing this with, and our friends from high school. We would sit at the lunch table during lunch period. And I remember specifically one day, because we were just like joke around and do stupid things and whatever. I remember this one day because we were all super pop culture and comics and all that. So I posed the question, like, if you guys were to have your own comic book, whatever, what would it be? What would be their name? What would be their story? And from there, that's pretty much where it started. And obviously for the rest of our friends, that was it. That was the end of the conversation. But for me and Jesse Chisholm, it kind of evolved into something more, where we had this desire to, hey, like, it's possible for us to write these stories. Like it doesn't have to just stop at the lunch table. It can continue on to something more. And so after high school, we kind of lost contact, me and him. But I think it was 2015 or 16, near the end of either year. He actually hit me up and he was like, hey, do you ever remember those days when we talked about our stories at the lunch table? And I was like, yeah, of course, all the time. And so from that moment on, it was like in 2016, November of 2016 is when we officially decided to make it into something real, right? And so I started writing the first draft of early in 2017. And the whole time we were looking for artists, we were looking for people to collaborate with, and at that time, obviously we were so new to this whole thing, like we had no idea what we were doing. I still feel like that. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. But we just had fun, right? And I still have fun with it even today. I think it was, again, like 2017, towards the end of 2017, something like that. I found Roman Gubsky, who is the artist of Crossbones. I gave him the script, and he completed it in 2018, and we launched Covenant Comics. It's funny because we've got our name. Do you remember the Prometheus series? Oh, shoot. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh no, I muted myself. I took
okay.
a sip of water. I hate what I have this like pet peeve when I hear when someone drinks water and you hear it.
Okay.
So I always whenever I
like,
drink water,
shoot.
I mute myself.
No,
but when I first heard about you and I saw Covenant Comics, that was the first thing I thought of. So it was kind of like I wonder where this name came from. So it's funny you say that because that was the first thing I thought of.
Alien Covenant, yeah. So it's funny because when we were first forming it, we were like, what should we call ourselves? And so we would sit in his room like all day, just like looking at random stuff in his room and just like point at it and be like, I don't know, like blank comics or like, whatever comics. And I remember we were watching a YouTube video and an ad for that movie came up, Alien Covenant. And then obviously instinctively I was like, or one of us was like, Covenant Comics. And then we just looked at each other and we're like, that's perfect. Like, so there's no really any meaning behind our name. It's just, we just pointed at a word and said, that's perfect. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So 2018, November of 2018,
it's cool like how you have a story, because a lot of times in comics like it feels very, I don't know, there's a lot of like, especially in the indie community, there's not a lot of camaraderie sometimes. Like it's very much like, oh, commission this artist, get these people. It's just very, I've worked with, people in comics now on these indie projects where it's just a group chat and half the time people don't even reply. But my first comic, I don't know if you know Comic Book Hunter on Instagram.
Yeah. Hero Story.
Yeah. So me, him, and our friend JD, we were like, I think originally, originally it was, they have their podcast and they were like, oh, we want to make a comic. And I immediately jumped at it and I was like, do you guys need a letterer? Like, I'll letter it. Like, and then, and I remember I was like, they were like, oh, well, it's not a paid gig. Just want to let you know, like, we're just doing it for fun. And I'm like, I don't even care. I just want to make a comic. And it was like middle of pandemic, actually. It was like April-ish. So like kind of, like we were in lockdown. So it was like all I did in lockdown, basically that first bit of lockdown was work on this comic. There was nothing else to do. So I colored the whole comic and I lettered it. It was just fun because it was like, 3 people that really love comics that want to make comics. It was great, no money involved at first. So that, that we've done a few comics just kind of for practice and fun, just to kind of keep it going. But that initial comic, like in just where the world was at the time, it was like the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, just to do it. Literally, there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I love like hearing those stories of people like passionately making comics, or just 2 friends kind of like, oh, what should we call this? You know what I mean? Because nowadays everything's taken, so it's like really hard to come up with. It's really hard to come up with names. Like Crossbones. That's a Marvel character.
It really is. Yeah. Yep.
Did you think about that at all? Did you look up?
I did. I did. And I was like, in the moment, I was like, who cares? At the end of the day, I was like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we're too small for Marvel to even care about us. And so that's why I was like, I'm not trying to do this to make money. I'm not trying to do this to become famous or to become the next whatever. Like, I just want to make this story and this name fits this character. And so that's what I'm going to call him. And That's pretty much happened.
Oh, that's cool because like a lot of people like when they're making a character, they looking up everything like
Yeah,
random name DC Comics, random name Marvel Comics. So it's kind of cool that
yeah,
you're just like, I'm just gonna do this anyway, and
yeah,
that's a good way to be. I think more people should do that because
yeah, 100%.
you know they don't have. I mean, they don't have license over everything, so it's
Yeah,
like, oh, and
yeah.
it
You're
should it
gonna make
should
up your
always
own
be
word eventually.
yeah. In a lot of these, people that do indie comics, it's so competitive, and it's like, you have your fan base. Everyone has separate fan bases. It's just kind of, and even still, it's like just do it for fun.
Yeah,
The
I think
art
that
and the
like
passion should drive it.
once you lose like you're having doing it for yourself, it just becomes like everything else. It becomes a chore, it becomes a job, and it's like I don't want to do this for like a job because jobs just end up being like begrudgingly like do this like out of a chore. Like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't want this to ever become that. I always want to be
Totally.
excited to see this character that we've created like come to life and people actually enjoy it. Like that's awesome. Even if they don't enjoy it, like I'm doing this for myself. Shoot, like
Yeah.
I enjoy it. And so I think once you lose that, it's like, what are we doing this for anymore?
Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever listened to any interviews with Todd McFarlane, but he
Yeah.
kind of talked about like him drawing up late, like just kind of like he wasn't doing it to entertain fans. He was doing it like all the crazy stuff he did. He was like, I was entertaining myself. I did
Right.
stuff that I wanted to see. So
Yeah.
it's cool. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to do this because I don't want people to think it's this way or misinterpret things or judge it. Or people are like, oh, people will be critical about the art or whatever. It's like just have fun with it.
Yeah.
As long as you try. Just like.
Yeah.
But
I think that like that's what I always like tell myself is that like at the end of the day, if this like whole thing, if Covenant fails or falls apart, we go into bankruptcy or whatever happens, at the end of the day, like one day I can hold because right now there's 4 books that I've written, 5 on the way. I can hold these books and like show these to my kids one day and be like, hey, like I made this, I wrote this, like this is something that I've done. Like even though like it's failed and it's gone, like it's right here. It's like in
yeah,
reality, like something that only belonged in my head at one point is right here, right in like our space of reality that we exist in, And so I don't know. That just excites me.
no, I thought about the same thing when I did my first comic. It was like, if this is my last comic I ever do,
Yeah.
I can show, my kids, show anybody, like I made this comic. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I remember my dad said something kind of funny. He was like, "Oh, make sure you have extra because you never know. Like Chris Claremont might move in down the street. And you want to show it to him." It's just like that's
Yeah.
such a weird, random thing to say, but it's like
It is.
I don't know, like, and that was a full trade too. It was like a
Yeah.
full 70-page book. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't just like a single issue. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
You
so
never know. Chris Claremont might move down the street. You never
you
know.
never know. Yeah, you never know. So you said, do you say you have 5 comics on the way or number 5 on the way?
I have number 5 on the way,
Okay.
as well as number 6, which will be the end of the volume of volume 1. So yeah, I'm currently writing both issue 5 and 6 at the same time. Planning the plan. Never know what's going to happen, but the plan is to release both issues next year, 2022, as well as the volume trade paperback at the end of the year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I never know.
You.
So that's the plan.
That's cool. No, I can't wait to see it. Like I said, I just read the first 4. I'm gonna check out the other guy's stuff too. But I'm really impressed what you did, and I'm really excited to see what you do next because a lot of people when they do indie comics, it's like you can I can't even talk. You can see the clear inspirations, but for this, it felt refreshing and original.
Appreciate
And
that.
I like that. Yeah. And I like, we'll pull up your website in a little bit, but I like how accessible it is. Like, people can buy physical, people can buy PDFs. It's not just like Comixology or like,
Yeah.
it's not just like an Indiegogo and it's like once the campaign's over, it's done. You
Yeah,
you
it's
can't
gone
get it
forever.
anymore. Yeah. So, so if you want to pull up the website, let's, take a look at your
Yeah, let's
website.
do this.
So anyone that's
Excited, man.
interested, it'll show. I'll include the link in the description so people can check it out. But yeah, we just want to show. If you're interested in Covenant Comics, this is where you go to get the physicals or the digital versions.
So it's covenantcomics.com. Easy. This is Welcome to Covenant Comics. Here's our 3 titles, our 3 characters. So at the top, it's Burlap. Ether in the middle, which the Burlap logo is covering. It's nice. And finally, my boy, Crossbones. So you can click on any of our logos here. It'll take you to each individual page. Let's just pull up the Ether page. This is just a brief synopsis of the series. Here's some pages and some interiors that you can look at. Here's the team. There's Jesse Chisholm, who my friend, who I started this company with. There's the penciler inker, Santiago. There's Bia Navarro. She's the colorist, and I lettered it. And then from each page, you can also click on these to buy physical, digital as well. There's Burlap and there's Crossbones. But if you go to our store page up here in the top corner, go and see each individual one. So issue 2 of Ether, and then all 4 issues of Burlap, as well as the 90s Nightmare trilogy from Burlap. And then all 4 issues of Crossbones are on here, as well as some merchandise. There you go. Cool hats. You can get a Crossbones t-shirt, Ether hat, Crossbones mask.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool. What else is on here? Here's our kind of like our about page again, like our story again. There's me. There's Jesse Chisholm again, and here's Jesse James Bear, who is the writer of Burlap. He joined us 2 years ago. He was not one of our friends in high school, but he reached out to us via email, and we just clicked ever since. And he's been a very close friend of ours ever since. And here again is the Universe at a Lunch Table story. So there's me as a high schooler. We dressed up as Batman and Bane. And so, yeah, there's our website.
It's awesome.
Yeah, simple enough.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, so I'll stop sharing.
Well, hey, man, this has been great. I'm so glad we finally got to talk. I know we've been talking on Instagram for a while now, in the DMs, but no, this has been great, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It's been such a pleasure. I always enjoy doing stuff like this, and obviously, you're a cool guy, and so, like you said, we were like clicking in the DM, so I was like, I got to talk to this guy face over the camera. But it's been such a pleasure, dude.
All right, man. You have a good one.
Thank you. You too, man.